It's Therapy Thursday here at Channel Q, and once again being joined by James Gay, licensed family and marriage therapist based in the Los Angeles area. Thanks for waking up and once again coming out and having a chat with us.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks.
One of the things that I want to talk about because it's kind of been front of mind for a lot of people is winter, right? The winter
Right.
blues. It's a time that can be beautiful if you've got the snow on the ground and the decorations still up, but at the same time, that dreary gray sky, those rainy days, they can really kind of weigh you down. So with winter now having taken a grasp of so much of the country and depression being kind of something that comes along with that, what are things that we can do to manage our moods during these times of gloom when you can't go outside and get the sunlight?
I mean, it really does have an impact on so many of us, right? I think, first of all, it's important to understand the differences, the distinctions between like the generic kind of winter blues versus seasonal affective disorder versus major depression. All of them can be at play, but there are those differences. So just being clear on what those things are. So the winter blues are things like are common and mild. They might include low energy and motivation, don't significantly disrupt our daily lives, even if it doesn't feel great. But seasonal affective disorder is much more pronounced, right? So that is something that is like a form of depression that can include like persistent sadness, sleep changes, loss of interest in the activities that we've previously enjoyed. And so that's more significant. And of course, major depression is not just seasonal, it's chronic and often long standing. So, with all those things, the interventions are the same. Sometimes they're stepped up or intensified depending on how much it's impacting our lives, but they can be things like embracing the light, moving our desk over to a window if we have one where we can see the light, the natural light that comes in, or going out even if it's in the bitter cold and for moments, even if it's just a minute or two when we can. Some of it's also moving our bodies, kind of getting that serotonin and those feel good hormones released if we can. And that can even just be indoors and whatever space that we have, whether that's yoga or any simple movements can kind of just break things up a little bit. And then also, I think it's important to honor the season. There's seasonal changes and hibernation is real, and it's okay to slow down as there's less daylight and more cold and more indoor kinds of activities. It's reasonable to expect that we're not going to be running 24/7, 100% of the time.
I'm just imagining stepping outside and that, today here, I'm in Central Florida and it's
Mm.
39 degrees currently outside. So, and raining. So
Oh
I'm
boy.
imagining,
Yeah,
outside, it's a nice slap to wake me up and be like, oh, okay, yeah, we're here again, right? We're back into
totally.
reality. But no, for some, I feel like, especially with all of that, right? And then to, this transition of power that we're seeing in our government, right? It might be
Right.
like a 1-2 punch.
Mm.
So, how can we keep ourselves going, but also keep those feelings separate? Because I imagine
Mm.
they're very different emotions that we're feeling.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly overlap, but there's distinctions, right? So, if those of us that aren't excited about this transition in power and all the things that are ensuing already in the first couple days, it can be really, really upsetting, especially those of us in the LGBTQ community and that have seen some things right off the bat, the ways that we've been targeted and scapegoated. So, to acknowledge that, I think is really important. And yeah, that can exacerbate the winter blues or sad seasonal affective disorder or major depression, those kinds of things. It can kind of intersect, interconnect, but it is all totally valid, right? I think that's the thing. The more that we can approach whatever's going inside for us with a place of curiosity instead of judgment, with self compassion of like, oh, noticing what's going on, what it's connected to, if anything, and then being able to attend to it in a way that's, again, not judgmental, but is kind and caring, like we would treat a best friend, hopefully. It's really important to give ourselves that kind of love right now.
I think self-compassion is a word that I haven't used much of lately, and
Mm,
I think that that's a
mm,
really important, Really important phrase to kind of keep front and center over the
Mhm.
next couple of years, but also just the next couple of months, realistically.
Yeah.
Um, when does the mood start to shift? And are there
Mhm.
signs to look for when it comes into, the winter season, right? Like you go from the
Mhm.
happiness, the fall, the pride season, all that stuff to all of
Mm.
a sudden feeling different, right? Are there
Right.
things we should be looking for?
When there's ever any kind of change in terms of our sleep patterns, our eating patterns, if we're isolating more, those kinds of things are really important to acknowledge. Usually, the stuff comes on for most people during the winter season, not the summer, in terms of seasonal affective disorder. So it's generally like, for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, December through March-ish, depending on where we live in the country and those kinds of things. The further north we go, the less daylight we have. And all of those things can be really important to watch out for. So low energy, changes in sleep, cravings for carbs, sadness, all those kinds of things are common indicators. And the more that we can attend to it earlier on before it sort of takes hold, I think the better too. I mean, there's even like light boxes that can give us the spectrum of daylight for indoors. And if we can start our day or mix it up and do that a little bit here and there, for some people that has some effect as well. So yeah, it all really matters.
Yeah. Or maybe take a vacation to some, bright and sunny place if you have the ability,
That would
if you
be nice,
have the
right?
means, but not everybody does. So is there further reading or resources that people can kind of
Mm.
look for this time of year when they start feeling these things really start to kind of formulate inside?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think first and foremost to reach out to trusted social support, whether that's family or friends, coworkers, other people that have experienced those kinds of things, is really useful. And there's tons of books on it. There's a book that's sort of more on the winter blues side of the equation. It's called Wintering: The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times by Catherine May. There's websites like the National Institute of Mental Health has a whole section on seasonal affective disorder. There's mindfulness tools and apps like Calm, Headspace, Insight Timer. And then, of course, if it's severe or you just want that added extra support, there's professional psychotherapists and others that can kind of help you address more specifically what's going on for you.
So there's a lot of resources out there that I feel
Yeah.
like, kind of look for this time of year, especially once you start feeling those things come on, or maybe you haven't
Mhm.
felt it come on, but maybe somebody has mentioned something to you and they're like, "Hey, I'm noticing you're not yourself." And maybe that's the wake up call of, wow, I've got somebody
Mhm.
around me that's paying attention to, how I'm feeling and how I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
paying attention to those around us and getting all the support that we can. Uh,
Yeah. Warmth.
yes, that too.
Well, listen, once again, James Gay, licensed family and marriage therapist based in Southern California, right there in West Hollywood. Thank you for once again hopping on and having this conversation with us, and hopefully chat with you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.